This story has pissed me off so much. Sam Elliott, incredible actor. I first saw him in The Big Lebowski, and I think he is now most known for the voice of all of those truck commercials and the playing Bradley Cooper's brother in A Star Is Born. Really, really good actor, known for playing, he's either in biker gangs or he's a cowboy. Mainly he's playing a cowboy. So he was on Marc Maron's podcast, WTF. And so I listened to the whole podcast in preparation of this. You've probably seen it online. It's been trending that Sam Elliott has been saying very, very homophobic things in relation to his opinions on Jane Campion's new movie, The Power of the Dog, which is nominated for a ton of awards, has a very high chance of winning the Best Picture for the Oscars, high chance of winning Best Director as well. And if I won't say much of what the story is about or what happens. So this movie came up in the interview, and Sam Elliott was asked what his thoughts were on Power of the Dog. He said that he thought it was shit. So if you don't listen to the whole interview, what you have seen online is a lot of clips where the articles say in the headlines, Sam Elliott says allusions to homosexuality in Power of the Dog are, and then it'll be out of quotes, ... then in quotes, bullshit. And then you get these articles from IndieWire saying things like, Sam Elliott proves that the Power of the Dog has bite in its themes, and a bunch of other places saying, there's clearly still bigotry in Hollywood that needs to be weeded out later. There were some people that are like writing articles like, we can't wait for this part of Hollywood to die out. So first of all, this is all bullshit, and I think this is very sad. Sam Elliott is a very, very good actor. And I wouldn't even say it. These types of stories are so annoying because it feels like you're having to fight two battles. There's the battle of what the perception is on social media and with all these articles, and then there's the actual content. And if you listen to the actual content, this type of thing happens all the time. You actually realize that the translation of what you actually hear to what the actual interpretation is that everyone is reading that's fueling the outrage is not the same thing in the slightest. So first of all, in the actual interview, Sam Elliott talks about how he loves Texas, but he hates the politics from Texas. He talks about how, looking back on his life, he wishes that he could have actually been at some of the civil rights marches that he was seeing on TV decades ago, and that he absolutely loved what was being stood for back in the day and wishes that he could have been there. And it is one of the last things they talk about. They talk about Power of the Dog. And throughout the whole thing, Sam Elliott is being asked, you have worked in Westerns. What is your perspective on this genre? And so it's someone who's worked in a field for a very long time talking about their experience of working in that field. And so he goes on to even say things like he's not a fan of John Wayne movies, and then he goes on to kind of say, it's more of like a cult of personality about John Wayne. It doesn't really represent the idea of what a Western really is. And so then whenever it gets to the point about talking about Power of the Dog, what he says, and this is actually, maybe before I get into what he says, I've actually talked about this on the channel before with, I talked about it with Don't Look Up and The Matrix Resurrections. So in order to really get into talking and discussing a movie, a good movie, I would say if there's a good movie, you're going to talk about it, you really want to talk about it. And there's I call it the hierarchy of giving a shit. So at the top of it, you have, the surface. There's just the watching the movie, experiencing the movie, and then below that, you have the culture. If the story's really good, then you will end up talking about the culture of it. And if you feel like that really connects with what's going on in this day and age, or going on at the time that it was made, or has something to say even more universally than that, then you're definitely going to have a conversation. And the best movies are the ones that get you to the third degree of giving a shit, which is, what is the movie really about? It has universal themes. The things that I think, the movies that you love, the movies that anyone loves that's in their top three, I think does that. The surface is great. If the surface isn't good, then you're not going to interact with the other levels. If the culture isn't good, you're not going to interact with whatever universal themes might be there. I think all movies have that. Even shitty Z movies have that. But because the story is so bad, there's no reason to engage with everything below that. Effectively, what Sam Elliott, someone who's been in the Western genre for years and years and years, says in the interview is, The costumes, the way that the ranchers behaved, the way that there are no families around in any way at all, the way that there's like one woman here and you've got like 25 men is in no way the way anything would have been. He mentions how the landscape doesn't look anything like the landscape where it is set. He then goes on particularly to talk about Benedict Cumberbatch's way of wearing only two different types of, I believe they were chaps, and the way that normally you would have multiple kinds, but that he actually wears them inside the house, and then he will actually go upstairs and sleep in these, and this is the only clothing that he wears. Essentially what he's saying is there's certain technical things that happened in this time, that happen in this genre, that happen in these kind of stories that is not about the deeper cultural level, but it's just the surface level of you got to get some things right. If you're watching like a new drama and the character is going to someone's house for dinner and they just walk in and they're like a guest, that's going to register as, why did he do that? That was a little bit weird. You know those points in movies where something happens and it just seems a little bit off, so you just kind of smirk about it? Like it happens a lot when you watch movies from the 20s, where back then, culturally, one person does something that's a little weird, so you laugh at it today because that's just not how we do things. And if you are the type of person that doesn't want to give allowances because that's how it was back then, and you're acting like an idiot, don't do that. And there's a point in his discussion of No Power of the Dog where he does say that there are allusions to homosexuality, and he even gets pushback on it, saying that, wasn't that kind of the point of the movie? And then Sam Elliott, I think, is I don't agree with him because I don't think that the movie necessarily falls because of what he was seeing as a critique. He was essentially saying that there are just so many technical things that you can feel are trying to get across a theme, that if you understand what that time was like and you understand what Western movies are like, that's going to come across as technically incorrect from just a technical standpoint. And for people to isolate 3 words here, 3 words from over there, put them together, they weren't even part of the same paragraph or the same thought, to make it seem like there's this huge misogynistic, homophobic thing going on is very, very frustrating. And it's been trending on all social media. I love Power of the Dog. I did a top 10 movies that you can find on this channel. Power of the Dog was on one of them. And I don't personally agree with Sam Elliott's conclusion that all of this stuff adds up to the movie not being any good. I really liked Power of the Dog. If someone else didn't like Power of the Dog, that's fine. If someone makes comments like Sam Elliott does in terms of something like Power of the Dog, leave them the fuck alone. Because all of this type of like clamoring on top of everyone because you can, I think it's honestly different these outlets like IndieWire, Hollywood Reporter, they keep coming out with all these articles about it. I just wanted to bring it up because it's very frustrating. It feels like they're kind of squeezing for content, and if you can outrage people, then that's very, very good whenever it comes to new content. I'm just very frustrated by all of that stuff, but wanted to bring it up. Give me your thoughts on it. What were your thoughts on that? What did you think of Power of the Dog? Do you think Sam Elliott actually did go too far in his comments? Honestly, that's a problem with podcasts too. You listen to the actual thing, you can tell that they're all chummy and they're just talking, they're hanging out, they're having a conversation. One person says, fuck or something like that, and then all of a sudden you're on a expletive-filled tirade like it's been talked about in Hollywood Reporter. But let me know your thoughts on it. Thank you everyone very much that follows the channel. We've done some rebranding. This is still obviously 5-Minute Critic, especially when it comes to reviews, but the channel's now branded as Nathan Velasquez. So thank you very much for watching. Please be sure to share the videos, share the posts, and subscribe to Nathan Velasquez on YouTube for future updates on reviews and movie news.